40s that are very, very important for this period. So he says, something's going on. From another side, Roman supremacy was being challenged by the Gauls and the Celts in England, and etc. And in fact, after Nero's death, disorder reigned everywhere. There was civil war and so on. Presented with this opportunity, many aspired to the imperial throne, while the soldiery were eager for a transference of power as a means of enriching themselves. I therefore thought it inexcusable, when such issues were involved, to see the truth myths represented and to take no notice. Parthians, Babylonians, remotest Arabians, Babylonian Jews, Assyrians, thanks to my labors, were actually informed of the causes of the war, the sufferings it involved, and its disastrous ending. The reason is to teach them, don't mess with Rome. Don't mess with Rome. So first he wrote it to dissuade others in the East, where the Greeks and those Romans who took part in it remain ignorant of the facts, deluded with flattery or fiction. Again, the flattery or fiction theme here. Yet the writers I have in mind claim to be writing history, though beside getting all their facts wrong, they seem to me to miss the target altogether. See how modern this is? Of course, it's translated to modern language, but this is like a modern preface of a modern writer. The Romans were very far advanced in terms of writing at that time. I don't think you get writing like this till the 1700s. For they wish to establish the greatness of the Romans while at all time disparaging and deriding the actions of the Jews. But I do not see how men can prove themselves great by overcoming feeble opponents. That's the point. These others want to make their Jews look like pieces of junk, and the Romans want wonderful. Well, he does the same, but he still wants to emphasize the braveness of the Jews. Again, they're not impressed by the length of the war, the vastness of the Roman forces, which endured such hardships, the genius of the revolutionary commanders, whose strenuous endeavors before Jerusalem will bring them little glory if the difficulties the Roman commanders, if the difficulties they overcame are belittled. However, it is not my intention to counter the champions of the Romans by exaggerating the heroism of my own countrymen. I will state the facts accurately and impartially. Well, not quite. At the same time, the language in which I record events will reflect my own feelings and emotions. Now, this is another important point. For I must permit myself to bewail my country's tragedy, the beginning of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. She was destroyed by internal dissension, and the Romans who so unwillingly set fire to the temple. See, he says the Romans didn't want to burn down the temple. They did it unwillingly, because that would be a charge of sacrilege. Were brought in by the Jews' self-appointed leaders, as Titus Caesar, the temple's destroyer, has testified. For throughout the war he pitted the common people, Titus Caesar, his hero, who were helpless against the partisan forces. And over again he delayed the capture of the city and prolonged the siege in the hope that the ringleaders would submit. If anyone criticizes me for accusations I bring against the party chief, the gangs of bandits, lest die, that kind of people who were crucified on either side of Jesus, or for my laments over the misfortunes of my country, must pardon my weakness regardless of the rules of historical writing. For it so happened that of all cities under Roman rule, our own reached the highest summit of prosperity, and in turn fell to the lowest depths of misery. The misfortunes of all other races since the beginning of history compared to those of the Jews seem small. Well, this is still going on. But look at the last point. And for our misfortunes, we have only ourselves to blame. Mea culpa. That goes into the Gospels. His death be on our head and on our descendants, etc., 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 etc. The cry of, we're at fault. Not you, it's us who are at fault. And Josephus starts it right there. Why would he humiliate himself so much? I think because to survive in this period, you pretty much have to go that route. How then can I master my feelings? If anyone is disposed to pass harsh judgment on my emotion, he must remember the facts belong to the story, and only the grief is the writer's. He's in grief because the city has been destroyed and the temple has been destroyed. On the other hand, and he goes on with some other things. By the way, he starts the history in the next page, starting with Antiochus Epiphanes, who stormed Jerusalem, holding it for 3.5 years. There's the time, 2.5 times in Daniel that we were looking for in your class the other day. Were driven out of the country by the Asmoneans, the Maccabeans. I shall explain how the descendants, how their descendants, by their struggles for the throne, forced Pompey. It's always, they forced the Romans to intervene. The Romans didn't want to intervene. It's because of the Jews' dissension that the Romans intervened. So you never criticize the Roman leadership if you can avoid it. Antipater's son, Antipater was the Arab intermediary who brought the Romans in. brought Socius and put an end to the Hasmonean dynasty and so on. So you can go through this whole extra thing, but mostly he, like in the last paragraph, I contrast the brutality of the party chiefs towards their countrymen with the clemency of the Romans. Read what the Romans did around the Sea of Galilee after they took it. If you wanted, they put all the old men and infirm and babies and others to the sword, while they took all the rest of the people into slavery, the women and the able-bodied men. And they divided up the spoils between Vespasian, Agrippa II, the king we were talking about, and others. Just read his account of the fall of the cities around the Sea of Galilee, this supposed clemency and so on. And read the fun and games that he talks about after the fall of Jerusalem, when Titus had birthday celebrations for his brother, all up and down the Mediterranean coast at stadiums, and used all the Jewish captives for some fun and games in the stadiums and so on. Anyway, at the end he says, all this I have embraced in 7 books. To those who took part in the war or have ascertained the facts as I left no ground for complaint or criticism. It is for those who love truth, not people who just want to be entertained, that I have written. I will now begin my story where I begin my summary. Anyway, so he says it's for those who love truth. His writing is for those who love truth. Well, comparatively speaking, maybe it was. So now, you do want to, if you can, remember that preface of Josephus. Let me just read you another bit from Josephus, a part about the different parties. I think we will find this in the Antiquities when he's talking about the Zealots, if I can find it here. I don't know if I can find it here quickly. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see, he's got the he talks about, let's see, after the tax, he gives the different sects here, yeah, book 18. He gives 2 discussions of the sects of Judaism. One is in book 18 of the Antiquities. The longer one, where he talks about the Essenes, is, I think, at the beginning of book 2 of the War. But he talks about the